All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and just like me. All right, so Jim Croce is getting an honor, not the one I think he should get, but maybe better in some regards, right? Maybe the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just doesn't deserve Jim Croce. They just don't deserve him. He's just too good for the Hall of Fame. That's going to be my new mantra when they continue to ignore artists that deserve to be in their hallowed institution, right? So Jim Croce, though, got a historical marker put up in Pennsylvania. Here's the story. 2.5 years after it was first announced, the late singer-songwriter Jim Croce has been honored by the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission with a historical marker. The plaque installed on March 30th of 2022 formally marks the barn in Lindell, Pennsylvania, where he wrote his songs, including the hits Operator, which is one of my favorite all-time songs. Operator is in my top 10. That's how much I like it. I don't think songwriting that good happens all that often. It happened on Operator. It happened on If You Could Read My Mind by Gordon Lightfoot. These are songs that are so good that it's just hard to describe how much better the songwriting in those particular songs was compared to the stuff that was coming out at the time, but moreover, the stuff that we're now surrounded by today. You just can't even compare. And then you've got Time in a Bottle, which is fairly amazing. Bad Bad Leroy Brown, which I got in trouble in the station wagon for singing the lyrics, and my parents were telling me that there was a bad word in the song and I wasn't supposed to sing that particular word, but it was such a catchy song that I just went along with it, right? I was told at a young age that beavers used to build dams. So I was kind of confused about the baddest man in the whole damn town. I just didn't understand that. And I just thought, hey, there must be a lot of dams built in this town. And then, of course, my mother washed my mouth out with soap and told me that dam used in this context was not a good thing and that I should refrain from doing it again. Needless to say, the song went all the way to #1, so it was kind of hard to ignore. Other songs like Photographs and Memories and You Don't Mess Around with Jim and so many others. The commemorative marker was initially announced in October of 2019. It describes the musician as being best known for upbeat urban ballads and songs about the common man. Let's read what the historical marker actually says. At the top, it says James Joseph Jim Croce, Songwriters Hall of Fame inductee, but not Hall of Fame for rock and roll inductee. And singer Croce was best known for upbeat urban ballads and songs about the common man. Hits like Time in a Bottle, Bad Bad Leroy Brown, You Don't Mess Around with Jim, and Operator topped the singles music chart, propelling Croce to national fame. A 2-time Grammy nominee, he wrote many of his most successful and timeless songs in the farmhouse nearby before his tragic death in a plane crash. Keep in mind, Croce did not die from some self-inflicted thing. He died in a plane crash. Now, I learned this week because I wasn't paying attention last year that the drummer who recently died, that everybody's talking about this drummer, Paul McCartney, is talking about this guy. And I'm thinking to myself, Jim Croce dies in a plane crash, is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The other guy dies of something that he most likely did to himself. And he lived, 20 more years than Croce. This guy was 50, Croce was 30. All right. And the other guy, the drummer, he's in the Hall of Fame. Last year, that band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Croce, who was his own singer, songwriter, superstar, School of Hard Knocks, told stories about the working class, right? Anyway, the musician best known for urban ballads and songs about the common man. Well, strike one and strike two. He didn't like New York. You might remember he wrote a song called New York's Not My Home. So that's a strike against him, right? The marker itself is located on Creek Road at Highspire Road. Croce graduated from nearby Upper Darby High School. So it's very interesting. The historical marker is near a farmhouse overlooking Brandywine River, where Croce lived with his wife Ingrid from 1970 to 1972. During that time, the pair enjoyed a period of creativity and entertaining with famous guests like James Taylor and Arlo Guthrie. Croce, who died in a plane crash on September 20th, 1973, we're almost approaching the 50-year anniversary of that event in Louisiana at age 30, had spent a number of years pursuing his craft during his time at Villanova University, where he was friends with fellow student Don McLean. It was then that he learned a valuable skill that informed the records he later made, being able to perform anything that the people wanted to hear while playing the old frat party circuit. He also spent time as a duo with wife Ingrid. During those years, he worked a variety of blue-collar jobs and met the kinds of characters he would later write about in such songs as Working at the Car Wash Blues, which has been focus tested off of radio, and Top Hat Bar and Grill. His break came when he began working with a college friend, Tommy West, who had formed a production team with Terry Cashman and was subsequently signed to ABC Records. Croce's 1972 album, You Don't Mess Around with Jim, reached #1 on Billboard's album chart, and the title song reached #8 on Billboard's singles chart. Next up from the album was Operator, and in 1973, a first single released prior to a follow-up album achieved only modest success, but on March 20th, ABC Records issued Bad Bad Leroy Brown. The song enjoyed a steady success as it climbed the charts and hit #1 on July 21st. Both songs were included on his July album, Life and Times. Just 2 months later, on September 20th, Croce died while on tour. Also killed were his manager, his road manager, and his musical collaborator, Maury Muehlheisen, who also, according to me, should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, according to me. I mean, that guy was a really great artist in his own right and a very great guitar player. The next day, his label released I Got a Name, which is kind of weird. I never knew that it was the next day, which the song was the theme song to the movie The Last American Hero about NASCAR driver Junior Johnson. The I Got a Name album arrived on December 1st. The song rose to #10 in Billboard. Its success was likely impeded by the release of another single, Time in a Bottle, in November. In just 8 weeks, on January 5th, 1974, the song became a posthumous #1 song. So very weird. Croce had two songs kind of competing against each other. And if you remember radio back at that point, Jim Croce was on the radio a lot. So I Got a Name was in competition with Time in a Bottle. In just 8 weeks, on January 5th, 1974, the song went to #1. 2 weeks later, Croce albums were #1 and 2 on the sales charts, ahead of releases by superstars like the Carpenters, Elton John, Paul McCartney, and others. In just over 1 year as a national presence, Croce became a beloved artist whose songs of colorful characters still play and resonate with fans. At 30, he was just coming into his own as a singer-songwriter. Just amazing. And a big part of that whole 70s singer-songwriter movement. And, you know, he's got a great catalog. Like I said, Bad Bad Leroy Brown, Operator, Photographs and Memories, Rapid Boy, Time in a Bottle, New York's Not My Home, which I love, Working at the Car Wash Blues, I Got a Name. I'll have to say I Love You in a Song, great hit for Jim Croce. You Don't Mess Around with Jim, and Roller Derby Queen, which is another working class favorite. So in any event, it's interesting. You had a drummer pass away at age 50, was in the Hall of Fame, did not die in a plane crash. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not judging anybody because they didn't die in a plane crash. It's tragic when anybody has to die for any reason, but apparently we all have to go through it at some point. It's, I guess, how you die and why you die and the circumstances surrounding that. It's also, what were you doing at the moment? I mean, in the case of Jim Croce, he was conquering the charts and becoming a superstar. And it's just weird to me that the Hall of Fame doesn't want to recognize that. And people in general, you know, this is kind of old news. Yeah, I was in a plane crash. Wasn't that the same thing that happened to Leonard Skinner and other people who die in plane crashes? Wasn't that Stevie Ray Vaughan's issue? I mean, and then, okay, it's just odd to me that Jim Croce, maybe because of his style, his background, you know, the people that his music was written for and written about, somehow that just eludes the elitists who are both radio programmers and people who could get Jim Croce into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, if he's on the ballot, he's got to go in the first time he's on the ballot, but I don't know if he's ever been nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And there are so many others. I know people will come to me and they'll say, yeah, but then there's this other band, they should go in first before Jim Croce. And, you know, and then there are just violations of like mega proportion because, say, a band has this huge catalog and they're still around, still playing live gigs, and, you know, Foreigner, the Guess Who, I mean, I get it, right? There are bands that should be in the Hall of Fame, but Jim Croce doesn't fit the demographic that they're looking for. Otherwise, he would have been in. He would have been in like 10, 15 years ago. But I don't think he's ever going to get in. But he does have this awesome historical marker. And like I said, maybe the Hall of Fame just doesn't deserve Jim Croce. That's my conclusion after just going through this over and over again. All right, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, notifications, Patreon, $1 a month. And just thanks to everybody who watches these videos. I'm fairly tedious at times. And if you're here at the end of it, that shows that you're totally dedicated. Either that or you're like washing dishes and you have me on in the background, which works for me. I've always said, best way to support this channel, if you can't give $1 a month, just put the videos on repeat play. That's all I ask.